Where to cash a check? 7 places. One would have thought that with the advent of internet banking we would not be discussing topics such as where to cash a check. Unfortunately, in spite of efforts by some people and governments to get rid of checks, they are still being used. Even those that are tech-savvy still find themselves once in a while receiving checks that need to be cashed. That is why it is important to know where to cash checks cheaply and easily. While cashing a check is usually free, there are some places that may charge you a service fee. We also need to be aware of things like how to determine if a check is valid or not. The following are the places where you can cash a check. 1. Cash the check at the bank that issued it. The best place to easily cash a check is with the bank that issued it. This is because the bank can easily check its system to see if the money is available. Other banks do not have this advantage and therefore run the risk of paying for a check that will bounce. Because of this access to the bank account, most banks will not charge you any fee to cash your check. In order to cash without any problems, most banks require that you bring a valid identification document. Most banks consider passports, driving licenses, and other government-issued identification cards to be valid identification documents. If you don't have any of these, you can still find some other identification and hope that it will be accepted. Another thing that you should note is that since you are not one of their account holders, you cannot cash using their ATM. You will have to cash your check through a bank teller. 2. Cash the check at your own bank or credit union. With your bank, you can just deposit the check into your bank account and wait for it to clear the bank. The other option would be to ask your bank to cash it immediately. In this case, some banks may charge for the service. And some banks will just ask you to deposit the check into your account and wait for it to clear. Unless it is a government check, there is always a risk that the check may bounce. In the case of a government check, most banks would easily provide you with the full amount on the check. However, if it is a two-party personal check, they may have restrictions on the amount they can. 3. Retail stores. Most of the big retailers such as Walmart offer check cashing services. They usually do this for a fee in most cases. It is the government-issued checks that may be cashed without a fee. I guess this is because the risk for cashing government checks is very low. Some retailers also impose restrictions on two-party personal checks. These stores also require a valid identification to avoid fraud. If they did not do this, anyone would cash a check even if it is not addressed to them. They will mostly accept most government-issued IDs. You should, however, call them first to find out the type of identification they need before you go there. The good thing about retail stores is that they are found almost everywhere, even in places where no banks exist. According to Walmart's website, they charge $4 for any check under $1,000 and $8 for checks above $1,000. Walmart also allows members of its MoneyCard to load the check amount into their card if they so choose. Another restriction that you need to be aware of is that two-party personal checks are limited to $200 and for other checks, it is $5,000. 4. You can deposit it into your prepaid debit card. If you don't have a bank account but a prepaid debit card, you can deposit the check into that card. The check may be cleared immediately if you share the same bank. Otherwise, you may have to wait until the check clears the bank for you to use the funds. In order to deposit, you just need an appropriate app for your card. This way you can just take a picture of your check with your mobile phone and upload it to your app. Banks are now issuing these prepaid debit cards even if you don't have a bank account. 5. Your employer may cash it for you. If your employer issues you with a payroll check, they can cash it for you. You may just need to find out from your employer if they do. When it comes to payroll checks, employers can cash any amount. However, if it is not a payroll check, then employers are restricted to about $1,000. Otherwise, they will be bound by some banking regulations. 6. You can endorse it to someone with a bank account. Another way of cashing a check is to just endorse it to someone else who can then cash it for you. You just need to make sure that it is someone you trust. Otherwise, they may just cash it and not give it to you. If you don't trust them, then maybe it would be better to accompany them to the bank and collect your cash immediately. To endorse a check, you to write the words, "Pay to the order of," name of the person, and sign your name and date. 7. Check cashing stores. Check cashing stores are business outlets that cash checks for a fee. In a country where 20% of the citizens don't have a bank account, these services are big business. These stores cash almost any check. The only problem is that this way of cashing a check is possibly the most expensive way of cashing checks. Their charges can go up to 4% of the check amount.